Hey guys, what's cracking? Godsman here. Today we've got a hell of a discussion video on the new glitter units that are going to be coming out in set 11 and predicting what they're going to be and what they're going to do. And with me, we've got a whole crowd of gangbusters today. We've got David, Anthony, Juan, Nabs, and myself, yours truly, all talking about these new glitter units and what they can do. How are we feeling, guys?
Oh, you forgot Zidan. You forgot Zidan.
Bro.
Zidan, you there? Oh god, he's dead.
He's muted he was muted for a reason, right?
Well, I have one thing to say and one thing to say alone. I sure hope somebody picks up that phone because I called set 11.
Okay. Cool comment.
This man's in the kitchen.
Yo, who let this man cook? I gotta ask. Who's cooking?
I smell an omelet coming. Alright, so the way this video is going to be structured out, because we've got a lot of folks here, so I'm going to keep it relatively structured. We're going to go each of the glitters in order of how they were released, because why not? I love flavor, don't you? And so we got a bunch of different people here because these different folks, they play the different glitter decks. We kind of make up a sort of a panel of expertise as well, and I use expertise loosely. So we start with Auroraway here, and my boy, what would you like to see in a Auroraway card? Would it be a grade 3? Would it be a grade 4? What would it do if it was either?
Well, for one, I'm biased, so I'd prefer grade 3 over grade 4, because I don't like wanting to hope to see the grade 4 in your starting hand or drawn to it. But I don't have any too strong thoughts on what I want necessarily, as I do. I'd rather just look at the potential and possibilities. So first you would need to look at whether you think this is just the card's going to be just a straight improvement, or is it going to be a side grade, or is it going to take a different path. So for example, one of like a huge weakness to Auroraway is it's very reliant on seeing a Radalina of sorts. So it could be in a way to just dig further for that, or if you want, you can take it another direction and have it be a very plant token based strategy where it really actually just cuts off Radalina entirely, and that can just be the quote unquote side grade of it, and perhaps even make that a bit more offensive oriented, because especially when you take out Radalina, you're gonna need a bit more offense.
Right.
Ideally, you'd either like a wish list of sorts to be either A, it can search with Radalina, B, do more with the plant tokens in an offensive manner in regards to what you're trying to do, because it's all plant tokens are purely defensive, and that's how we're getting our plus. We're attempting to commit as little to the field as possible while still having some form of shield value. And then as an extra bonus, I guess you can say, is that if the Auroraway unit had some way to buff rears, because if you're sticking to the Radalina, then being able to just keep buffing your Momoke token for a bigger offensive pressure would be nice.
That is a pretty big weakness of it, is that it's so good at being tanky that it feels like when the opportunity arises to potentially close out games, you can't close out games, huh?
It's more like you do have the potential for it, but you just have to hold and hope that what you have on hand is ready for it, and you're able to conserve the pieces you need it to form the offensive pressure, which you assume will be next turn isn't be enough, but it doesn't really generate that much advantage, for it to be honest.
Right. And in the first place, searching the Radalina is kind of an important keystone thing, because a lot of what you can do in a turn is based off your ability to see the Radalinas. That's important. And anyone else on the panel here got like any thoughts on like what a potential Auroraway would look like?
Make more space for tokens.
let tokens be tokens and do token things. I mean, we can't all be Grand
rare circles and summon tokens to all of them.
All right. In terms of like actual suggestions, what do you think, David?
I don't have the expertise on Roro. I can't say.
Yeah, friggin' I think when it comes down to like a row, I think personally, the Ratalina bit and the offensive bit are definitely the key note things. One other direction that they could go, like for instance, you could retire tokens both offensively and defensively. And Nabs here, he's not talking at the moment, but he did cook up some custom card ideas on them. And the one he made for the row was a little bit interesting. I'll pop it up on the screen here so you can see. And it kind of shows the very underlying premise of what the row would do. It would get your Ratalina. It would be able to use the tokens in a more upgraded manner, and it just feels like an upgrade all around. Now, that's in the case if it's in an upgrade, but like you said before, in a side grade, it could just be more of a different focus. But what would you say are like weighing the odds? Do you feel it's going to be a side grade, or do you feel it's going to be an upgrade?
Alright, I'm Kyle. So you're referring to me or?
Yeah, you. Like, do you think it'll end up being like the kind of thing where they're trying to make grade 4s or cross ride grade 3s a la mass style? You know, just stuff that basically evolves and enhances the deck gimmick, or do you think they're just going to be sort of alternative cards like how the Orphis Regis and Red Zorga were?
Personally, I feel it's probably more going to be in the grade 3 category than well, also that's just biased on my part because I don't want to play grade 4s. but I feel like it's gonna be more on like the side grade, because if you like look at also like previous things, like for example, instead of another grade 4 boost, they made Violence boost, right? So somewhere along that category.
Right.
Or maybe not. It has its pros and cons to it in terms of being an upgrade.
Hell, maybe even call plant tokens mid-battle for multi-attack and buff the tokens. I don't know. So I guess those are some general thoughts on like Roa. It's kind of an interesting deck right now because it can burst a lot of offense, but that's based on your pieces. But the defense is all right at home. The defense is all with the Vanguard itself. So that's sort of where it always falls back on the tanky strategy, because that's the one thing you could always be assured of at all given time. So maybe that's where they'll try to either expand on it or differentiate from it. And you know, like you said, if it's a grade 4, they might expand on it. But if it's a grade 3, they might try to depart from that and go for more of an offense range. I think that is interesting. So moving on. Friggin', the next glitter that we're talking about, I think it's Tama, right? Is that the second glitter that got revealed? Yeah.
It is.
All right, you know whose time it is then. Take it away, brother.
Resident Tama Euro player Anthony here, back at it again.
Cooking.
I'm really excited for this. Tama deserves an upgrade, I believe. You know, I love this deck. It's my heart, my soul, my everything. I'm taking it to Spring Fest. Hopefully it does me well, but so I am really hoping for an upgrade personally. I am expecting more than likely a grade 4 because Tamir does have that at the beginning of Ride Biz effect to give 5,000. So it doesn't really make sense for it to be a grade 3 unless the grade 3 has an on place. But I think a grade 4 would do the deck really well, and that's just where I want to start. What else? Of course, it would have to do something with the twins. And I know a couple of us were talking about this, so we're thinking it's probably going to be a Soul Blaster Tamiyura card to like either call the twins and give them power, or give them the opposite twins effect. Like I know Nabs was creating the custom cards, and he mentioned that, and I thought it was super cool.
But we get to that when we get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, though I'm fully expecting an upgrade because I just think a side grade 3 wouldn't make sense for what Tamiyura does. So
yeah, especially since it's not like these cards were bad in the first place. They're already like pretty good solid units, and they didn't necessarily need to be side graded for other kind of strategies. Like the strategies feel like they could be a very dedicated strategy that you could expand on rather than just change up. Freaking, so like what is your number one wish? Like if there was one thing you wish a Tama deck could be improved on with the new Vanguard, what would you think that improvement would be?
I guess my one wish list item would have to be just increasing the power of the rears. A lot of the problems with Tamira is if your opponent hits defensives or just has enough shield on the rear swings, you can't do much. So I would like to see, it doesn't have to be a heavy boost to the rear guard's power, but I would like to see some kind of boost to their power without hitting triggers or without having to already have that at the beginning of ride phase effect.
Right. That's a really good point, right? If you lack the power, then like your turns can literally get shut down, right? And so if this is a theoretical like grade 4, you do not want your turns getting shut down by a crappy little defensive.
Exactly. So definitely would hope to see more power.
Damn well better, man. Friggin' that's very fair. Friggin' so Chaos was next, I think.
Yes.
Chaos. Okay,
Yes.
well, we had a Chaos player. He couldn't make it today, so he's passed the baton as it was over to me because I'm the guy who plays it the most next to him. So for a Chaos, I think it's going to end up being a grade 4 Chaos. I have been, at first, I wasn't thinking on the grade 4s. I was thinking they're going to be all grade 3s, like cross-ride type things. But, you know, I think I'm pilled on grade 4 more now. But regardless, I think with either Chaos, just seeing a different Chaos has some implications. Of course, it's kind of had this Highlander kind of esque thing. So a different name is a different name. That's always cool. The order that Chaos has, the one that's able to put cards into Soul off top 5 based on the number of the Chaoses you have in Soul, is going to get more value from seeing a new Chaos, particularly if it's like a grade 4. That makes a lot of sense. I can see that being the case. But as for what it does, I think my number one wish list when it comes to Chaos is the ability to recall Makani from the Soul. Because I know the grade 1 Makani already does it, but you may not always see the grade 1 Makanis, and then your grade 3 Makanis are stuck in there. So if you were to re-edit the skill to where it's able to sort of call the Makani from the Soul, or maybe even from the deck, kind of like a Legion almost, right? Where they're able to call their Legion mate. I would want him to be able to always be able to recur that Makani for the restand effect. In addition, the old Chaos, it has a really big power up if it's at 13. I think 13 is a cool number. Of course, it's a bad guy number, but that's exactly what makes it the correct number here. But if you reach 13, I think at that point, in addition to just straight up power, it should probably have another sort of threatening skill to try and close out games. Because if you reach that point, you're trying to kill that turn. So it may be something on the lines of, oh, your Makani has a ridiculous guard restrict skill, or perhaps you can give Makani the ability to do drive checks on the rears. Just a way to be able to focus on that restand and abuse it and seeing it every turn, because you're low on resources anyway, right? So you have to make sure that your offense game is there at all times. The last thing you want is to invest so much, get so many of these different names in the Soul, and then be like, oops, I can barely get 3 attacks this turn anyway because I ran out of cards. Wonderful. So that's what I would think from a Chaos. Does anyone have like any thoughts on that though?
I guess it just means that on top of getting a grade 4, they also need like, you know, a bunch of resource cards. Because orders are such a pain in the ass.
They are.
Oh my god.
That's the right line. Speaking of the right line, the grade 2 right line also requires specifically approaching Fang's Chaos, which you know adds more to the reason of why it should be grade 4 and not an Orpheus Regis thing.
Yep. That's another big thing. And when we get to the Thegria section in just a second, there's going to be another interesting tidbit you pointed out there. But I mean, with the Chaos stuff, this deck you could literally take it a lot of ways. But thankfully, it's got a lot of ways to make use of just the presence of a grade 4 and the aspect of a triple drive. But it's not going to grind too long. You know, like a triple drive is good for getting back that extra card and stuff, but it could also deck you out potentially. You know, you're trying to get a lot of cards in the Soul there, and then from there it starts to get a little bit weird with it. So it should have some sort of game-ending strategy. It should be the kind of card where you throw it down, you reach the win con kind of move as it were, and then you go for it. That's what I want. I want a more secure way to close out games so that it feels worth it playing the Chaos strategy over all the other kind of wacky crap that you can play in Dark States right now. Yeah, so that's what I want to see from it. So next up is Thegria, and so I guess I have to speak again because originally I was only supposed to be doing the Thegria section, but I already explained the whole situation there. So Thegria is potentially the most interesting one. Thegria is a really, really weird one because we're already dealing with a deck that has 2 versions of its Vanguard. It already has light and dark Thegria.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's add another one. Add a third. Wow.
Add a third, right? So
and if you saw like the artwork for the Great Four, and not Great Four, for the new Thegria, it has a sort of gold paladin aesthetic to it, which implies that it's going to make use of both of the Thegrias really well, because gold paladin is supposed to be a combination of royals and shadows.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different examples. That plus, on top of it, this is where we're gonna talk about. And honestly, just so I'm not like hogging the spot, like now, you and me can probably just take this section together because you've been kind of hyped about some of the Thegria stuff, and you cooked a really, really good card effect that I'm showing on the screen right here. But the thing about Thegria is, if it were to get a card, I want it to be a grade 4. I would want it to be a grade 4, and straight up. First order of business is that this grade 4, when it rides on a Thegria grade 3, it triggers Persona Ride. I want that to be clear. It should trigger that Persona Ride. It sounds a little scary, right? But I think it should, because you're already playing an order that enhances your Persona Ride. So if you're trying to go for a new Thegria, you don't want to endanger that sort of kind of effect. You want to maintain that. Also, it's just kind of cool, and no other grade 4 has really kept the Persona Ride to my understanding, so it's cool to do that. But then from there, you sort of unite the light and dark aspects. You try to get a little bit of both. The light one, it calls cards, and then it restands rear. The dark one, it retires and it restands itself. Now, the approach here could be you get rid of a Thegria from the soul or the hand by like removing it, and you can gain its effects, or you get an effect that's sort of like it, but an enhanced version. So you can't do both in a turn, but you can do an enhanced version of either or in a turn. Like, for instance, if you were to remove a Dark Thegria, you can still restand your Vanguard, and then it gets minus a couple drives of power, like the card effect was on the screen. So it's like, it's still a big-ass attack, and also maybe in addition, it retires a rear. But then if you do the light one, perhaps you're able to restand a column now instead of just the one front row. You can restand an entire ass column and make that even more powerful. I mean, how the grade 1 maples, they restand from behind anyway. So that's my thought process. You're uniting the two and making them both worthy to see, because you toolbox the 2 Thegrias, but now they're under the umbrella of a stronger Vanguard. That's the way I think they're going to take the Thegria approach, though. Does anyone have any thoughts on it?
I sort of assumed it was going to take an MLB route of some sorts, where if you have both the dark and the light counterparts in your soul, then it gets an additional effect.
Right.
That's just what I thought.
I can
Since
definitely
it's
see that as
already-
well.
Since it's already just a dark and a light focused deck, I just assumed they would take the MLB route. But then again, it's not like they have to follow that. They don't have to follow that kind of archetype, but
If
that's
anything,
kinda what I thought they
MLB
would
is
do.
in standard, so they might not want to follow that per se, because, and I mean,
Correct.
I pointed out earlier, because it's really easy to step on MLB's toes, because it's got cool concepts, but it's just really bad at it. So whenever we use those concepts in other decks, we inherently kind of make them better than MLB, and I always joke, hey, but then you're just going to power creep out MLB, but it's really easy to do that. It's kind of sucks. So yeah, you bring up a good point. Maybe it's the nature of its effect is continuous if it has those cards. I know some grade 3s, they like to use, not grade 3s, grade 4s, they like to use the grade 3 versions, or just a copy with their name as a cost for the big effect, right? And so that's why I was assuming they would be able to do that. And then the maples as well, they can sort of cycle through cards. Shooting Angels can throw them back in. There's something to that effect going on. There was a commenter in one of my videos. He made a comment that was interesting, which is the mask units, they have a design ethos of removing from the game just a different name from themselves, right? They have sort of that design ethos. Now, grade 4s have a design ethos that's sort of similar somewhat. They will use up their base version. Not all of them do. Grade 4 Bruce doesn't do anything with with its base version. Mahar Nirvana and the other ones do, though, to my understanding, right? I'm not going to be talking about lyrical stuff in this video, though. And
damn,
that,
no waifu.
I know, unfortunate, right? You know, if Michu gets some good stuff, we can talk about it then, right? But I guess she's busy being Hololive stuff.
Please give us another cannonball.
Another cannonball. Expand on that, please do. So the point I'm getting at here is it's possible that the glitters are sort of like an antithesis or a mirror of what the masks are like in their design principle. We could see that. That's just a little bit of a side topic though. Anyway, that's enough on the Thegria stuff. Last but certainly not least, because it's the best, we have Ava. Take it away, David.
So as far as Ava goes, the only like little bit of evidence we have of like what it could be right now is the name and the art. The name is Poison in Paradise Ava, and just personally, I don't think that sounds like a standalone boss unit name. I think it sounds like a unit that's supposed to work in tandem with the already pre-established Fountain of Knowledge Ava. So I think it's either going to be a grade 4 or something along the lines of a mask unit. I personally am of the opinion as of right now that we're going to continue the trend of alternate grade 3s. But personally, what you could do for Ava is it probably needs, like, you want it to be a turn 4 mechanic if you're going to make it better. If you're going to make it better, it has to be some sort of a turn 4 mechanic, or else we don't want to make Ava's turn 3 better, because what's absurd about Ava is how much you do in those first 3 turns, and how much like advantage you generate in those first 3 turns. So as far as like speed and like consistency, like it has everything already. The only thing you can really add to it is if you wanted to give it a harder push on like turn 4. So again, like it just sets up for that whole like either an alternate grade 3 that has to ride on top of Fountain of Knowledge, or a grade 4. I'm not completely against the idea of a grade 4, of course, but one thing I would expect is I want to say it could be kind of like the grade 4 Bruce, where it gives like, we could have like more pressure to the front row, so that your obfuscate swing harder, but realistically keep a similar effect. We could also see it take the route of going into 5 attacks, which sounds a little it sounds like a little much. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah.
But to be fair, we gotta like right now, currently, Ava's keeping up with Jet in the Japanese meta.
Yeah.
So I realistically don't see this being too big of a power creep on Ava. I kind of expect it to be not like a jump up in power, just like a side option, if you will. I don't even know if it's like, it's hard to like make that kind of a card like playable though at that point. Like you give it like triple drive on a grade 4, does Ava become busted the moment you give it a triple drive from turn 4 onward? I don't, like you still have the downside of that. You would be playing not only like 4 obfuscades, but also like 4 grade 4s now.
And
but
also the research cards.
And the research cards. I mean, to be fair, obfuscate's 10k shield. So like obfuscate's not a normal grade 3.
Right. Speaking of obfuscate, one thing you talked about, right, which is kind of a cool point. You brought up the idea that if this Ava maintains the ability to call obfuscate from the deck, that it's at the end of the battle phase. Explain why that matters.
Okay, so it's really just to make the grade 2 obfuscate from set 8 better, because currently the card's kind of crap. And the reason why the card's kind of crap is because you have to call it when you attack, which means if you call the grade 2, your opponent can just say, oh, okay, I'll just intercept with both fronts. both my front row units. And then, like, what was the point of you calling the grade 2? It's just inherently worse than the grade 3. At that point, you're going to put on more pressure with the grade 3 pretty much no matter what. But if you do it at the end of the battle, you force them into the situation of, oh, I can intercept, and then they're going to call the grade 3, or I can not intercept, and then they call the grade 2 and wipe my front row. I think
Honestly,
just changing the when it calls Obfuscate Aid could honestly be a huge improvement to her as a deck, as crazy as that sounds, even though you wouldn't get to stack more triggers on Obfuscate Aid. You know, as long as she's the second attack of the turn, you can always stack it on one of your other front row units that has an attack, so it's not that big a deal.
yeah.
What were you gonna say, Nabs?
That sounds hella fucking
No. Well, what do you call it?
Like,
I'm
God.
just gonna say. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, he was.
I'm just saying, like that would be quite the upgrade, and I think that'd be, yeah. That deck's already scary enough.
I like the utility option of that, because I really feel like the Ava sometimes feels like a utility deck rather than a all-out aggro deck. So I kind of don't like the idea of like 5 attacks or guard restricts or extra crits or anything like that. I'd rather see her be able to get extra utility.
Hell, maybe an ability to like recur a research card. I don't know, freaking like emphasize the ability to be like to have versatility as a deck, because then you can sort of retroactively redefine what Ava is and what it should be, because you know she's a researcher, she's supposed to be like all about knowledge. Why the hell is a deck all about knowledge and finding out new things feeling like a one-trick pony?
Isn't that the point of the first skill?
Well, the point of the first skill adds like just about anything.
Yeah, like, you know,
dig and then add anything, and you also don't have to like reveal it to your opponent, so like you get to look deeper into your deck and then like add something. But like one thing that kind of like you have infinite resource management too, so like you don't worry about the cost of that. But like really when it comes down to like what Ava does though, realistically, in terms of how she attacks the opponent, you only do the same thing every turn.
Yeah.
You swing rear, you swing Ava, you call Obfuscated from deck, and then you stack triggers on that Obfuscated swing.
Right.
Like it's just a 4 attack deck right now. But I mean, if you made it at the end of the battle, then you have the utility and actually have like usage out of playing like the other grade 2 Obfuscated. But then like you could also add like be able to add orders back from your drop to your hand would be really nice. That would be really nice.
Oh, it would be very nice because you want to keep seeing them.
You would being able to soul blast out the grade 1 order after you suck it into soul with its own effect.
Then just get it back.
Yeah, just get it back.
I mean, why not be able to have infinite recycling? I'm going to be honest with you, that might be a little bit busted just because of what the grade 1 order specifically does. But I wasn't even thinking along that lines, but that's really busted.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot more that lines, right? Because if you do it, then Ava's like it emphasizes more on the resourcing aspect, and then it becomes into a deck where it's like, okay, well, its offense hasn't increased any, but you're gonna have an even harder time killing it. Oh, the joy! Youth players, time to deck out.
It turns a already fairly decent grindy deck into a super good grindy deck.
Especially if you could put cards back in the deck somehow. Oh baby!
Yeah.
Beat anybody in the grind deck. Man, freaking beat Mother effing Chronoja in the grind game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, that was more or less the glitter units here. So as you saw, the Nabs had put up a theory effects for all of these cards, and I was showing them throughout as we were discussing them. Nabs, do you have like any kind of final thoughts here? Because you didn't really get a dedicated section yourself, but you did want to comment briefly on each of what the new glitters could do towards the end.
Give me a sec. Now, personally, right, I think a good way that they do the Great Force is that they make it so that kind of like the same way the original Great Four impacted the original 5, in that you get less power, but you have more in terms of resources.
Yeah, dear WCC brought a really good point when it came to why grade 4s were good, which is that the element of the triple drive adds stability to a deck. Stability is very huge, especially back when the format was a bit slower, and so it felt like that stability was more of a game changer. Like Mahar, but Mahar may not like it bursts out really strong, but the thing that lets Mahar win games, I think, is not the burst element of it. It's the fact that every turn you don't kill Mahar. Mahar just keeps going. It keeps triple driving. It keeps pushing.
Yeah, true.
So, like, you said you had some thoughts there, right? You thankfully, because we showed the cards throughout, you don't have to go over like all of them and have it towards the end. But like, of all the new glitters, right? Which one are you the most hyped for? Because I think you're the only one who doesn't have a dedicated dog in the race between us.
I'm equally hyped for all of them. When you're hyped for nothing, you're hyped for everything.
Damn, man, that is not an answer for the content.
No, it just means that I like all of them equally enough. Give me a bit though.
Frickin' yeah. So that I suppose that more or less wraps up the discussion overall. Does anyone have any final thoughts? Anything that when we grazed over for your section that you thought you'd want to emphasize here?
I have a final thought that is unrelated. Hey Bushi, fix your distribution problem so my promo order cannot be $60.
Actually, as a matter of fact, can we just fix the idea that promos are absolute staples anyway? I mean, people be talking about that new Alma Gesture card, right, and showing it up there. It's like, oh, the effect, wow, it's a good common, it recycles back to the crits. I'm like, man, can we just have a normal unit that counts as a crit? Oh, wait, it's probably going to be a promo, because it's just that good.
Yeah, it's just a big problem right now. But
yeah.
It's up to you, Bushi. Thanks.
Still going to Springfest. Yeah.
Love you. Please look at me.
Right. So that pretty much sums up what this discussion was. We gave some of our basic thoughts. It seems like, interestingly enough, when it comes to glitter decks, there's different things to address for different strategies. With Auroraway, as one was mentioning, more about trying to get your pieces together and having an increase in power would be a good improvement. But then, with Tama, it's definitely a power thing. That's an issue with Tama. You go over to Ava, it's a versatility issue, and you definitely do not want to power it up too much more because of what it is right now. Hell, even if Power Creep were to go past Ava, I don't think it should be like some super powerhouse deck in the first place. Wouldn't you agree, man? It doesn't feel like it was advertised as that kind of deck initially.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it kind of does a lot, but like at the same time, I feel like the power ceiling of like 4 attacks with the extra crit on obfuscated, like that's fine as far as aggro goes. I don't think we need more aggro. I think this should be a more defensive, more technical deck rather than
right.
Shit.
Yeah. Then you go over to Chaos, and the thing about Chaos is it should have a more dedicated win condition, always be able to see its mechanics, because it's so. For a deck that can't search that Mikani, it certainly relies on Mikani to do anything meaningful with a strong turn, it feels like. So it definitely needs to see that. And then with Thegria, it kind of just comes down to unifying the two sides and hopefully kind of giving access to those effects in any which way, so you don't have to always be doing this weird ride into this and get that particular effect. Streamlining the deck and making it feel relatively just a bit faster would be the way to solve it. Anyway, you got any closing thoughts here, Nabs? We're about to end it.
I just wanted to say that I designed all this grade 4 with giving them less power, because they also lose access to persona, right? But giving them more stability, and that's it. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, that may very well be the way they go with it. And of course, if they're all grade 3s, which they very well could be, maybe they're like cross rights or something, that could also be cool. Maybe they even reference having the original in Soul. And so it's like the opposite of Mass, where they want to keep the original in Soul at all costs in order to maintain their big effect, you know, which funnily enough kind of feels like MLB. So they could go with that way with it. But regardless, I think we're all hoping to see some upgrades here. And yeah, I guess that's the moral of the story at the end of the day. Leave your guys' comments down below on what you think the new glitters will do, perhaps what kind of cards are going to be, or what a particular effect will end up being. I'm interested to see what your guys' ideas are down below. And if you did like this video, got plenty of other discussion videos in my channel, along with top 10s, tier lists, fight nights, the whole shebang. My anime watch along series has been really going with gas lately, so maybe head up on that if you're interested in seeing how the show's going right now. And with that, take care. God bless.
See you next time.